That's your privilege, Mr. Scott. But I've been driving for 2 years now, and I've never had a tip, not even for parking. And not one of my fenders has a scratch on it. May I ask what your record has been for the past 2 years?
Well, that's really not here nor there, and rather than appear obdurate about it, the meeting's at noon tomorrow in the Pine Room.
Okay, Sharon, shoot.
Now, check the cafeteria to make sure all the arrangements are complete for the victory luncheon.
Okay, I'll take care of that.
And he says we have to send out at least twice as many press releases as we did before.
Check. What else?
I don't know who'll do this. Try to get interviewed on TV.
Well, that's your job, Maureen. You got what it takes for that kind of stuff.
Oh, no, you don't. What are you trying to do, bring radio back again?
Oh, cut it out. You're a real movie star.
Oh, here's one more thing we all can do. Mr. Burton says to try to get lists from all the service clubs with names and phone numbers of every man who's volunteered to be an official or an observer.
Well, okay, but I don't get it.
To call them up Friday and remind them we expect them out Saturday morning. Mr. Burton says if it's a nice warm day, some might just happen to recall a previous golf day.
Well, 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 if it isn't the Indianapolis Race Committee as I live and breathe.
Well, okay, Mr. Hotshot. If you're such an 8-cylinder wizard, why isn't your entry in here?
Are you kidding? Get up at the crack of dawn and play some silly baby game? Count me out, little sprout.
What is it with you, Tay? Chicken? Afraid some of us will show you up?
Show me up? That'd be the day.
That'd be the day I'd like to see.
And you know what, Tay? I bet even I can beat you.
Put your money where your mouth is.
You are chicken, aren't you?
Don't be silly, Lily. I wouldn't race against a girl.
And don't be stupid, Rupert. It's not a race, it's competition. And besides, I'm not even sure that shot rod of yours could pass a safety check.
Shot rod? Okay, you asked for it. What's the bet? And I'll even give you odds.
That won't be necessary. Tell you what, whoever loses takes the rest of us to the movie Saturday night.
And how will we get to the show? Or has your father become big-hearted and changed his mind?
I didn't mean to the drive-in. We can all go down to the park side. I want to see what they're playing anyhow. Well, Tay, is it a bet or is it a bet?
Oh, okay, but you wait and see. I'll cream the whole bunch of you.
Just sign here, milkman, and we'll see if it'll be cream or just a large dose of skim milk. Safety checks start tomorrow. We were getting closer, and the auto shop volunteer crews work like maniacs checking cars. Maniacs is right, too, for who else would have passed Tay's car as being safe? I guess they checked the car, not the driver. But where there were boys, there was Sally, clowning as usual and doing anything to make Tay realize she was alive. Tay didn't think it was funny. And Mike, with his father's brand new hardtop, he didn't think it was funny either when they told him the car couldn't be okayed because the front wheels were out of line. Poor Mike, having to tell his dad 2 high school kids had rejected his shiny new car as unsafe. His father took to the notion like a duck to a load of buckshot. Next morning, school had hardly opened when Mike's father was there, chewing out Mr. McCutcheon as if it had been his fault. But Mr. McCutcheon explained that's what auto shop and driver ed courses are for. Mike's father went for that in a big way. He told Mr. McCutcheon he would have his wheels aligned and let Mike enter. But it wasn't all work at school. Maureen, for instance, went out with the run supervisors for a final check on the course they had laid out. And what a course! 100 miles through city, freeways, country, and, this being San Francisco, of course, across the Golden Gate Bridge into Marin County. It was all so beautiful, we prayed it wouldn't rain the day of the run. Little did we know, poor innocents. Now the whole school helped. Journalism classes wrote all publicity we needed. Art classes designed the posters. And the print shop turned itself inside out doing the car placards. I even typed dozens of envelopes to the local newspapers. And Maureen was interviewed on TV, as Jimmy was on radio. The last big chore was weighing in the cars that were entered, because the weight of the cars and the occupants is used in figuring the final score. Saturday morning, the day of the run, I was out of the house by 6. And so were lots of others who jammed the station we were to start from, where the observers got their final instructions. They asked a lot of questions about how to score penalties for any infractions. The Ham Radio Club was checking with their mobile stations along the course. Placards were put on all cars entered, and so were strips of luminous paper to make it easier to pick out our run cars. Gas tanks were filled to the very brim, for free at that, and attendants marked the filler pipes so they could be refilled when the run was over to determine the exact amount of gas used. And then, for the first time, I noticed the weather. Gosh, if it rained now, how could we complete the course in 2 hours and 40 minutes? Mike was there, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and the law was there, too. Each car had a numbered sticker put on, and I drew number 45. Then Mr. Burton came up to introduce me to my observer, Mr. Samuelson, and told us we'd better weigh in and have the total entered into our official report. Our clowning Rover girl was getting her kicks, too. As a rib, she told Tay his observer was the vice principal. He just about died. But then Sally got his official observer, Freddie Agabatian, one of the country's top racing drivers. And was Tay thrilled. Now we'd have a chance to show a professional how good he was. 9 o'clock, and Maureen, the official timer, marked off the seconds for the first car to start. The weather looked worse, but this was it, and our chance to prove a lot of things to a lot of people. Jimmy, cagey character, made a real smooth start, maybe because the starter was a well-known judge. Starting time, as it must to all men, came for Tay Stevens. Whoops, Betty lost a couple of gallons right there. Then at 10 minutes to 10 came my turn, and my heart a pounding lump in my throat. I was off and running. Making sure we flashed our turn indicators, we rolled up onto Bayshore Highway, and I saw the weather was getting even worse. But with the traffic and having to watch the speedometer and all the other things I had to do, I didn't have much time to worry. Of course, Tay, who knew he could drive better than anyone, sailed along blithely, not watching anything, like that 35-mile zone sign. And he never did argue Mr. Agabatian out of that penalty or the other infractions he piled up. And then it hit us. Golly, rain. We all had to reduce our speed. We had lost so much time that when the rain stopped, it was a temptation to really tromp on those gas pedals. Now that we had been through overcast and rain, we ran into our next obstacle in trying to maintain the top legal speed. Fog. Good old fog to make us slow down again. But then, as it always does around our wonderful town, the fog washed away, and there, under the brilliant sunshine, was San Francisco itself. There were the little cable cars for which we are famous, clanging and bouncing along. There were the familiar steep hills. And before we knew it, we were into San Francisco's Chinatown. Believe me, there was little we missed on our 100-mile tour. Even the much-pictured Bay Bridge in the background, and the Embarcadero, with its tantalizing smells of spices and distant seas, and its 25-mile zone signs to slow us down again, just when the weather was better and time getting shorter and shorter. How about that? Glad I was down below and not swaying up there on the cables, despite the beauty of our renowned Golden Gate Bridge. And with the bridge not too crowded this Saturday morning, we were feeling better now about finishing the run on time. Down on the bridge itself, our cars rolled along. Later, we heard how deep an impression the skill of the teenage drivers had made on the adult observers, who all said the same thing once the run was over. Never in their lives had they had such legal rides. But I'm ahead of myself, because the run wasn't over yet. Thanks to the rain and fog we'd been through, time was getting shorter and shorter. Then as we started on our last lap of the figure-8 course, we still had almost 15 miles left. Then as we headed back to the bridge approaches, there it was again, rolling through the Golden Gate. Fog once more. By now, it was almost 11:40, and I knew the first cars should be back in town, approaching Polk and Hay Streets for the finish. But I didn't know that because of the rain and fog, all the officials were worried as the cars rolled back in just seconds under the time limit, some just missing being disqualified. It really was more exciting than the start, with every driver anxiously watching the pumps to see how little gasoline had been used, because even a few ounces could mean the difference between a winner and a loser. Then, with all the cars back, we trooped off to the victory luncheon and the announcements of the scores and the awarding of the trophies. Contestants sat with their friends and observers, while upstairs, computing machines clicked away, auditing the scores down to the last decimal point. If you go in for suspense, then this you would have loved. Talk about dismal luck. While we sat there simply dying to know how we had made out, Mr. Simpson, who had brought the trophies, awarded them first to the other 4 schools. But then it happened. Peninsula Union High, starting with our boy who'd been 3rd best. Think he wasn't tickled? Get a load of that wall-to-wall smile. Then Al Larson, who'd been 2nd. And finally, with all of us biting our nails, 1st place to unbelieving Jimmy Cushman. Then the big news, the school with the best team score, Peninsula High. They made me go up and accept the trophy. And then we all made tracks inside to see the huge piece of paper on which everyone's score was written. After all the boasting I'd done about doing better than Tay, I was popping my buttons till I found out if I had. Where was my name? There, Sharon King, 8th place. But where was Tay Stevens? How had he done? Uh-oh. Tay Stevens screamed himself into 14th place. That night, before they picked up Sally and Maureen, Jimmy, Mike, and Tay came by our house. Jimmy had talked to Mr. Potter, who admitted he was convinced. But we didn't know yet if my dad had relented and would let me go out at night in the kids' cars. But not only had he relented, he almost shook Jimmy's arm off, kidded Tay about his bad showing, and then said it was okay. I could even use his car myself at night. So, after all the work and discouragement, we had proved something to Mr. Potter, to my father, and to anyone who reads a newspaper. Good old safety economy run.